Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Joel Clark for another episode of Wuxia Workshop. And tonight we're going to be talking about The Bride with White Hair 2. This is a 1993 film directed by David Wu. It's produced by Ronnie Yu, and it's co-written by Ronnie Yu, who is the director of the first film, which is a classic, and we've talked about that here. We've talked about this movie on Wuxia Weekend, but not on Wuxia Workshop. And this was Joel's first time seeing it. For those who haven't seen it, it follows the story of the two main characters from the first movie, Ni Chung and Yi Hong, and the aftermath of, what would you call it? Their really terrible breakup, Joel? Is that a good way to describe?
Yeah, let's go with really terrible breakup.
Okay, and so in this one, Lian Ni Chung, played by Brigitte Lin, is the head of, and I'm just going to put it in very crude terms because I think that's the best way to describe it. She's basically the head of a lesbian cult that hates men, right? Like that's kind of, would you say that's a fair description of
I think there's actually only one character in the whole cult that I would consider lesbian. I would consider them like the She-Ra Man-Haters Club. Okay. It's more like these are a bunch of jilted ex-lovers and women who've been treated wrong by men who want gory, like, extrajudicial revenge.
Okay. All right. I feel like that's debatable because I feel like there was an undertone to the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? But, like, I get what you're saying. There really was only one overtly lesbian
there's one who, like, you make really quick. You're like, okay, I got your number, lady. The rest of them, I don't know. I don't think it was, like, overtly sexual. It felt more like an inversion of gender roles more than it was a lesbian thing specifically. Maybe I'm misreading some cultural cues there.
Well, no, I think you're right. Like, I don't think, like, it wouldn't... Okay, so we're kind of jumping into it quickly, but, like, it wouldn't be framed, I think, in the terms that we would frame them now in our current culture. Like, this was more like the character that we're thinking of became a lesbian, not because she was a lesbian, but because she hated men so much. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a different...
Yeah, it's contextualized differently.
Yeah, and so it was more like a rejection of the like, you know, just the order of the world that they're sort of, you know, fighting against. So anyways, but it's about this cult which is still trying to wipe out the remnants of Wudang and the 8 clans. You know, all going back to the first movie. And in the meantime, the Cho Ye-hang character is basically waiting on a mountain for a flower to bloom so he can bring it to Ni Chung and make her hair black again, right? Like that's like this. There's this flower that only blooms once. What is it? Once every 10 years? Was that it?
I think it's once every 10 years. Yeah, they really do take it up from the very end of the last movie. Like it's very painful.
Yeah, and so. And so as that's all unfolding, the you know, the sort of new generation that's sort of growing up in the aftermath of this, because this is like 10 years later, they have to go and contend with the witch and her cult, and they do not succeed on the first attempt, and so they seek out Cho Ye-hang, and then they have to go and you know, ultimately face her again, and in the end, Cho Ye-hang returns with the flower, and there's this massive confrontation that's probably one of the most operatic scenes in Wuxia ever made.
Beautifully shot too. Like they're set on fire
and
for a while.
Yeah, it like this scene, it runs the risk of being way over the top. It is way over the top, but it somehow works. It just comes together, you know, very very nicely. So what was your reaction to the movie, Joel? This was your first time seeing it. Is this your first Wuxia sequel, or have you seen Wuxia sequels before?
No, we did all the Brave Archers.
Oh, okay, all right. But that was a trilogy. That's a little different.
True. But this might be my first, like, genuine Wuxia sequel, come to think of it. Maybe not. I don't know. No, because we did Golden Swallow.
Okay, all right. Yep.
Okay, so no. I've done some sequels before. But, man, if I have to compare them, this sequel is tons better. It's faithful to the original. It's a unique story that's set in the aftermath of it. And it's its own movie in its own right. It's so much its own movie that if I didn't know it was a sequel, I wouldn't suspect it was a sequel. It really is just this completely encapsulated, rich, and completely told story. It's great. It's really good.
Yeah, you could watch this without watching the first one, and I think you would understand it, and it would still resonate.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one definitely helps. Like you definitely want to see the first one.
I would have felt poorer for not seeing the first one. The first one, I remember that review really well. That movie made an impression. I liked that movie quite a bit. So I'm glad the sequel is good. And I'm also glad that the sequel isn't slavishly connected to the first one. It's just set in the same universe faithfully.
Yeah.
And by that I mean, this story is about a group of young and very weak characters who fail miserably, and a lot of them die horribly.
Yeah.
And they're really frustrated at their place in the previous story, because they're almost like a cliff note to the giant operatic story that's told in the first one, which reaches its conclusion in this one. But in reaching its conclusion, it just tramples over these poor kids.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You feel for them so much, especially Dynamite Guy, who is going to be my hero of this movie.
Oh, really? That's interesting. That's an interesting.
Dynamite Guy, I love him so much.
Why did you like Dynamite Guy so much?
Magic, Kung Fu, I've got a gun. Like, I love those characters. I don't know why. I love the Iconoclast.
Yeah, this has like I don't know, kind of like a Dirty Dozen vibe to it, but in a wuxia way, where all... Again, I say this a lot, but it's the reason wuxia... One of the reasons why wuxia is so great is that you have these movies where you just see all of these different characters that inhabit this martial world, and it's thrilling to just think of a universe populated by these people, and when they get it right, they so get it right. And this movie gets the balance of characters down really well. I would say more than the first one, because the first one was really more focused on the two main leads, which was great. I'm sorry?
It's quality of a few characters, like as far as like real depth and outlandishness.
Yeah.
Because nothing compares to the twins in the first movie in this movie. The twins is a high watermark for wacky ass characters. Yeah. But every character is likable in this movie, and I genuinely felt upset whenever some of them died.
Yep. And I think, and again, I would say I favor the first movie over this one. I think it's tighter. I think it's more of a perfect film, but I think they're both really good. And I think this one's really entertaining, and it kind of frees itself up, kind of like you're saying, like it tramples over these characters, but by focusing on them, it does free itself up to be another kind of movie. Do you know what I mean? It does. It doesn't have to do. It's like another movie within the span of the first movie, because, like you say, it sort of falls over this story like a canopy. Do you know what I mean?
It does. Yes. And it bookends it really nicely too, because we get to see the direct aftermath of both of the leads in the last one. We get to see the guy on the mountaintop, and man, he looks miserable.
Yeah.
That's a good way to open this movie. And then it leads it. Like, the dialogue is the connection between them, because everyone's talking about him as this distant lost uncle, while our lead in this one is getting married, trying to do some political arrangements there, because he's like, well, isn't he like the last of the Wudang or something like that? And he has no heir. And so everyone's like, uh-oh.
Well, and I think the other cool thing about that is that it's still Leslie Chung. Like, Leslie Chung has a small role in this film. He just sits on the mountain for most of the movie, and then he shows up at the end. So it almost feels like he's just getting like he's showing up for a paycheck, right? Like, that's kind of like that's sort of the effect. But at least he's there. Do you know what I mean? At least they got him back in the movie, and I feel like it was actually even
it's
if
such a powerhouse when he's on screen. I didn't, because he looms over the movie. The kind of promise of him is the promise of hope in the movie, and like he's in the whole thing in that regard.
And I think that's actually good for the film. And I don't know if they did it because that's the film they wanted, or if they did it because that's the film they had to have because they couldn't get him for the whole thing. But it actually works out kind of better in the end either way, because it has that effect of he's looming over the movie, and then when he shows up, it's so much more powerful because you are sort of forced to feel Lian Nichung's sense of his absence. Do you know what I mean? And so it just makes that scene super powerful, and they have so much chemistry, and then just as like they work together really well, and she's really good at going from being what's the word, like just demonic and resentful to tender. Do you know what I mean? Like she can shift right back into tender with him, and like on a dime, and
that scene is an amazing climax to these two movies.
Yeah,
like it's really amazingly well acted.
Yeah, and it's really moving too. I think it's one of the more moving wuxia endings that's out there.
I might have squirted a little. I might have teared up.
I don't think you should use the word squirt for tears. I think that's
it's so much funnier to use the word squirt.
I think, but I don't know. It just feels wrong. But no, it is moving. It's very moving, and I think, and again, there's, like we said, it's if you just describe it, it's over the top. The place is literally burning down. There is fire. There's carnage. Everybody is getting killed. Like she impales him with her hair. What was that?
Everybody is getting killed.
Yeah. This is like Shakespearean tragedy level ending. Let's walk through the beats. Like every one of the characters that are part of the troupe, except for the main lead and his wife, gets slaughtered. Right? They all die in some manner leading up to this.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and then he almost dies, and most of his body gets burned, right? And then Lian Nicheng impales Choi Yi-hang when she. It's almost as if she's attacking him, thinking he's going to block, and he doesn't. It's one of those kind of things. Right?
Yeah, he just lets that stuff just stab right into him.
And he's just
might be skipping ahead to the amazing climax, though.
And we know how nasty that hair is because we saw it kill Moon earlier in the movie, right? Or we saw it wound her.
She was such a fun character.
Let's bookmark that because I want to talk about her separately.
Moon deserves some mentioning. I do want to talk about Moon. I liked her quite a bit. She was fun.
But just to kind of walk through the big climactic death scene, so she impales him, and then the other I can't remember her name, but the one that is like the only lesbian in the movie. I think was it Chen? Was that her name?
It's something very simple. Yeah, the girl who had this kind of like poisonous love for the bride with white hair. It was almost like a love based on hate. It was really unusual. And she's resentful of the fact that the bride still has feelings for the guy that betrayed her.
Well, and she's the I don't know if she was the wife or like the mistress of the general from the first movie who betrayed the dynasty by working with the Qing. And so so she ends up stabbing Lian Nicheng, and then Lian Nicheng just bashes her in the chest, and she goes flying, presumably killed.
Yeah. No one is a match for the bride with white hair. She is a monster in this movie, and she's super fun to watch.
She's really powerful in this one, and like she doesn't even have to do anything. She just like looks at you and you die. It's like that kind.
There's that scene where the Dirty Dozen, as you term them, finally confront her, and they're like, "Finally, we can have our vengeance." And she looks at them, and they start blown backward by the force of her chi, and you realize just how doomed they always were. And it's this real like heart wrenching moment because they're like, "Oh, I really like these characters, and they're probably all gonna die in this scene." They do,
and it's so great too because that's like Brigitte Lin's like in the first one, all she like. I don't think she actually has a power quite like that in the first movie. I could be wrong. But we see a lot of scenes where she gives somebody the death stare, and it has this effect. And so I like that they really played that up in that scene, because that stare that she does is so effective in the previous movie. And now it's like a martial ability. But I don't. But all we're left with at the end are the new couple. The bride and the groom from the beginning of the movie. And
when you think about it, their marriage being interrupted is what kickstarted the whole movie.
Yeah,
so it's nice to see that they actually, not really a happy ending, but they at least get to get married. That's nice.
Yeah. So I don't know. I really like the ending. I like the plot, but we should talk about the characters too. And I think you really wanted to talk about Moon. So why don't we start with her, because she is a really cool character.
She is, and the more I think about her, the more I like how appropriately she slots into the movie. Because a lot of the bad guys, like, part of the way their evil manifests is that, like I said, that inversion of gender roles and expectations. Like, they have a lot of male slaves and courtesans and concubines that they're, like, murdering and torturing. So, like, there's clearly an inversion of gender roles going on there. And Moon is a tomboy, but she's a good guy. And, like, I like that. I like her as a balance for that kind of gender inversion. It plays with it a lot. It's clever. And, like, the actress is really charismatic. I really enjoyed watching her do stuff.
Yeah, I agree. She was great. She was and I think, let me see, the actress's name is Christy Chung. But she had a lot of charisma, and also I like the way that. Oh, go ahead.
They had, like, a love triangle with her too, which was fun.
Yeah, and she was kind of the one. She was sort of the odd person out, but I thought what was interesting about her as well is that when they go and they attack the cult, and I kind of want to know how you feel about this overall, because it's something that you see over the course of the movie, even after she dies. But we keep seeing things from her perspective, right? When they go in and attack, and she keeps observing a lot of the men. Not just killing these women that are part of the cult, but really kind of losing their shit as they do it. Do you know what I mean? Like getting kind of like
that too. Yeah. I'm not sure what we were supposed to be seeing there. Like, maybe we're supposed to see the kind of the justification of why women would go on these, like, vengeance tirades, because this is kind of the treatment they've experienced. Like, we see a lot of flashbacks of the quote unquote evil women, and like I don't want to be that guy, but, like, they got treated pretty bad by these dudes. So,
yeah, no, they were treated pretty awfully, and also I think I think that's kind of the point of that it's not like justifying everything that Lien Ni Chung is doing, but it is sort of presenting the, like, okay, when you, like, remember the scene with the two flautists, or I think it was a flautist and a guqin player or something, but there's two musicians,
something like that.
Yeah, there are two musicians, and they're basically telling the musicians they're kind of tormenting them. She's like, play this song, no, play this song, no, play that. They're kind of, and the men are so enraged that these women are doing it to them in this way that they start talking back, and then they kill them, right? And so,
well, they kill one of them. The other one's like, oh yeah.
I think they kill him too, though. Eventually, I think he ends up getting killed.
They kill him too?
I don't think either of those guys make it out of the scene alive, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, they weren't very good musicians.
But the thing is, the Chen character, she used to be like a courtesan or like a sing-song girl of some kind. And so, like, she says, I used to be a musician too, and I never complained. Do you know what I mean? And so,
yeah, and like they're getting these guys are giving these women attitude full well knowing that their lives are hanging in the balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Really,
yeah.
And you get the female perspective a lot in this. I think that's one of the reasons we see stuff from Moon's perspective literally. We're literally getting the female perspective on it.
Yeah.
And you do have a sympathy for them. You're like, wow, they're really being treated like crap. I can see why they're so frustrated.
And they don't quite follow through with it. I don't know if they really need to, because I think they're just trying to establish that there's like a grain of truth to what this cult is sort of talking about. You know what I mean?
And it's pathos. It's not justification. It's simply pathos. And that's rewarding to see in this movie.
But even after Moon dies, you still kind of see it when Green takes out the crazy sword lady, right? Like, he really kind of goes, like, and he's got his reasons, right? Like, a lot of terror, like, she killed Moon. There's a lot of things, but, like, he really, his behavior seems kind of similar to these other characters that Moon was observing on the initial raid in, right? So it still kind of echoes through the film, I think. But
the real heroes of this are the ones who are really gentlemanly, like in that kind of Confucian way, where like in like you were talking about the last scene where the bride with white hair attacks her paramour and he doesn't block, he just lets the knife hair stab into him and he just gently presents the flower. Like that's presented as this like noble act of heroism and self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
And like the love triangle with Moon is because she's in love with the other Wudang guy who is engaged, and I guess he's married to his lady love, and like it's shown that like that kind of like real chivalry is almost a threat to the very like ideals of the all lady vengeance cult. Like that's one of the reasons like he's targeted by her at all, is just that she sees like something that's actually kind of noble and reminds her of her own past, and she's like, nope, it's all a lie. I'm going to show you how bad you really are, because all men are pigs. And the heroism of the men in the movie is proving that wrong through real heroism, through real chivalry. That's really sophisticated and neat, and it was fun to watch.
No, I agree with that, and I also want to. What do you think of the Chen character? I should say too, she's a historical figure. She was like the real life concubine of the general that was also a historical figure. You know, a lot of these other characters obviously are not historical, but it's kind of interesting that we have these historical personalities.
Yeah, that's always fun about wuxia movies. They'll always throw in like a little dash of history to them, which is kind of fun.
It's like a pillar. It's like a pillar that kind of sets it in, reality.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it reminds me of watching like what was it, Tombstone, where it had like some real life historical stuff kind of dashed in there. And like obviously that's not actually how it manifested, but like it gives it something, There's something you can grab onto. It's kind of satisfying.
Well, and the way they do it in these movies is they make them into real characters too. So it's not like oh, Mark Twain is showing up and he's just going to walk through the film and walk out unscathed.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, no, they're real characters that are involved in the plot. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes pivotally. So, but I don't know. How'd you feel about her as a character in the film?
She, like you said, she had a real Shakespearean vibe. Like, I really felt like that's almost a character you could have just put like directly into a Shakespeare play and she'd be right at home. She's got like a forbidden and really kind of like wretched love for someone that's based on hate, and she's like the person who holds the knife to them at the very last scene, and like I really liked her. She was a good bad guy.
Yeah, I thought she was fabulous, and I think it was I don't know, again, this was 93, so I feel like this was a period where there was a lot of movies that kind of did that sort of thing, where they would sort of bring in like the lesbian storyline, because at the time it was considered tittillating or whatever. But
yeah, I think, titillating or taboo. A lot of people, a lot of stuff around the world dipped their toe into it around that point. I remember I remember living through that. Like, I'm old enough that I remember 93, and like whenever a gay character got to be openly gay, that was a huge deal. People were like, "Whoa, I don't know how to feel about that."
Well, what's funny? Yeah. The stuff like that was going on before too. Like in the 70s, they had movies like that. But there was like, I think with Basic Instinct maybe, but that was that like the first one that kind of
that was a landmark one. Yeah. There were a few like Basic Instinct that came out that everyone talked about a lot for a while. So yeah.
But so it was kind of it's kind of like that. But I feel like this is a movie where that was really a needed ingredient for this cult to kind of work. Do you know what I mean? You kind of needed that aspect of it to I don't know, it's just like an obvious feature that it would have, right? Do you know what I mean? Because that's sort of like where some of this philosophy seems to kind of lead, and that's where it leads this character. So I thought
well, one of the things that I appreciate about that particular thing is that it is specific to that one character. It's not like they're just generally lesbians just to titillate people. They are naked a lot, so there is that.
Well, there's one. Wait, there's just one nude scene, isn't there? Or is there?
I thought there were two.
Okay.
I mean, there's at least two that I remember.
But you know what I think that is? I think that's the sequel rule. I think because in the first one we had the scene with remember the guy who changes to a woman and we see the bare breasts. And in this one, we get like two women with bare breasts, right? And so,
no, but they also have that scene where they make out in the underwater grotto thing in the first one, and isn't.
But there's no real nudity in that scene. That's like
she's totally topless, isn't she? I don't remember.
But you can't see anything. You don't actually see.
That wasn't the important part of that scene, but I seem to remember toplessness.
You do not see Brigitte Lynn naked in the first movie. I swear to you.
I'm gonna rewatch that. It's on Prime. I'm gonna rewatch it. I'm just gonna rewatch that scene.
I'm like 99.9% sure you don't see. I mean, like, it's one of those scenes where, like, the actors are supposed to be presented in a way where you can tell that they're supposed to be naked, but you don't actually see the actors' bodies. Do you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure it's that kind of a scene.
Fair enough. We're going to see later on.
But that was also a flashback scene in this movie, right? So, I don't know. But either way, I feel like...
How much I loved that shape-changing scene, by the way.
That's a really cool scene. That was a really cool scene for, because it kind of...
It's a good segue into
it's like a sex magic scene, right? What was that?
Yeah. It's a good segue into the weirdness of the twins' character. That's before you really know about him or them.
Well, and we don't really quite have equals to the twins. We do have the crazy sword woman. I don't know what you thought of her. She's kind of all eyeballs is how I feel her character is portrayed.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can't hold a candle to the twins. Almost nothing can. I mean, in all of the movies we've seen, very little compares to them.
They were bizarre. They were bizarre, and they were a really interesting visual, just the way that they were presented.
And like, the voice was really good, and like, their presence in the movie was good, and their outfit was good. Like, they're almost like a Final Fantasy villain. They're like this whole other tier of gonzo villain. So it's not really fair to compare anything in any movie to them, because they really are in a league of their own.
What did you think of the Granny character?
Oh, I love Granny. I love Granny because we kept getting more female perspective from her, you know? Like, she had her own story to tell. She was her own fully fleshed out character, and she wasn't just, like, martially very capable. There was a lot to her, you know? She was, like, strategic, and she was fun, and she was very personable. And I like the actress quite a bit. Like, this is
she's very charming. Yeah, the actress was incredibly charming who played her. I loved her introductory scene where she approaches the camp and they think she's the white-haired witch because she's got gray hair, and they immediately fire arrows at her.
Yeah, Moon shoots 3 arrows, and does she catch them in her teeth?
Yeah, but the force knocks her to the ground still, so it's just a really great slapstick scene.
I remember that, and I remember the moment she pulled them out and dropped them on the ground, I out loud said the words, "I'm sold on the Granny character."
Okay.
And I was. From that moment forward, I was in love.
Yeah, this movie has more fun, I think, than the first movie. There's a little bit more humor in it, even though in a lot of ways it's darker. Do you know what I mean? But
it is darker.
It's
like higher and lower, you know?
Yeah.
More
there's a broader range of tone. The first movie really keeps its tone pretty tight, which works well for the first movie.
It does.
This movie opens it up a lot so that you have a lot of humor, you have a lot of darkness, you have a lot of action, you have a lot of crazy things that just come out of left field, like the bombs, and like it's a very open-minded wuxia movie, right? Whereas the first one is crazy in a lot of ways, but it's a little bit more closed-minded because it has to be, because it's trying to tell a particular kind of story, right? And it's trying to establish a certain mood. So it's interesting to have that contrast.
So and more tame. It's weird.
What was
because
that?
Its characters are definitely more gonzo, and their powers and the situation is weirder. But like, you're right. Like, tonally, it's actually kind of restricted and tame. Not to its detriment. It's focused. But yeah, that's one of the interesting ways these movies differentiate each other without ever really like getting so far away from the thing that makes either of them appealing that they really feel like tonally dissonant. They're really great. I need to watch them back to back at some point because like
it's good. It's good to watch them back. I believe that's how we did it on Wuxia Weekend, because I think we put them together somehow. Like I remember watching them really closely together at a certain point, and I feel like it holds up quite well. And I think, and again, I think the thing that really makes, I mean, obviously, the first movie, Leslie Cheung and Brigitte Lin together are the things that really make that movie work, as well as the twins, because the twins are just the best villain ever. This movie is really held together by Brigitte Lin, right? She's like the glue that holds this film together, I think. And it's more because in the first film, it's called The Bride with White Hair, but we don't really get to see the Bride with White Hair except for like the last 5 minutes.
She's in it for all of 30 seconds. Yeah.
because she doesn't become the bride with white hair until the end. It's really an origin story. The first.
It's
movie.
like if this movie was called The Man with the Magic Flower.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it would be like. And so this movie, we really get to see the bride with white hair, which is probably the thing that you're craving at the end of the first movie, right?
So, I wanted to see more of her, and this movie didn't disappoint. Yeah. Like, she's in the whole movie. She's the main bad guy. She's super powerful. She kills so many people.
Yeah.
Which maybe I shouldn't, like, be joyous in watching her slaughter, like, good or innocent people. But, man, I grew up on Mortal Kombat, dude. I love the bloodbaths.
No, it's, well, I think, just the in the first movie we knew about her hair ability, right? You see her use it, but I think until you see her use it on Moon in this movie, you don't get how horrific it would be, right? Like,
because like they cut the strands off that attack Moon, and like a scene later, they're still sticking out of her, and like they can't even get them out. It's really horrific and kind of gut-wrenching, especially since you're in love with Moon at this point. If you're any kind of person, like, Moon's character totally endeared herself to you.
What did you think of Moon's death scene, by the way?
It was heroic and heartbreaking, and might have squirted again, just a little bit.
Please don't say squirt for two. Say you cried. I don't want people to be confused about what's going on when you're watching this movie.
I can be confused about my eye socket.
I don't need to explain to you why people might interpret that the wrong way.
I'm only saying it because it bothers you. Also, that's how my grandfather would always say it. He would never admit to crying. So he would say that.
I mean, I'm sure your grandfather was a lovely man, but I'm just going to say that's a lot worse than admitting that you cried.
My grandfather was somewhere between a Nordic giant and a living potato. He was an unusual character. He's a very large man who moved freight for a living.
You know what's funny? That's like a very odd mental image for my head to juggle and then reconcile into a human being.
He's
a Nordic giant and a potato. But it reminds me of something relevant to this movie. As I was watching it, I was like, there really hasn't been a more perfect film for the Dio song Last in Line than this film. I think that, I don't know if you're not familiar with the movie, but like the opening line it's not the opening line, but one of the big lines at the beginning is "We're off to the witch," right? We're off to fight the witch, and so it just I don't know. I just kept thinking of Last in Line when I was watching it this time.
I don't know, are they evil or divine? They're last in line.
But,
yeah. Dio,
so
man.
Okay, so you're familiar.
Kind of a Dio fan. Not gonna lie to you.
So, but do you know what I'm talking about? Do you think you could set this to a music? Like, do you think that you could upload
Wizard of Oz this to a Dio album?
Well, could you make like a music video, like with clips of the movie, and Last in Line?
Easily. I mean, to be fair, like Dio sort of lends himself to doing that. Almost any one of his songs, you could take a movie of appropriate awesomeness like this one and cut together a really good video. What I'm interested in now is if I just like put on the album that Last in Line is on, does it sync up a la Wizard of Oz and the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon album? Does it do that with this one? I'm curious now.
I don't think so, because you're going to have to get like, what's the song? I Speed at Night? Like, how is that going to make any kind of sense?
One night scenes? I don't know.
And then what is it? One Night in the City? I don't think we even get a city in the movie, right?
Maybe it's
and then Egypt. How is Egypt going to work, Joel? How are you going to get Egypt into the mix? I think. I don't know. We'll have to. Here's what we'll do. You said you're going to rewatch. Wait, I don't think the album's long enough to.
I don't know. There's so many variables I need to actually look at. So we'll see.
But the important thing is, I think we could cobble together clips of the movie to Last in Line, and it would. I think it would be kind of nice. Do you know what I mean?
Speaking of that, I was introduced to Dio in an unusual way. Back when I was a teenager, I was really into the anime AMVs they would do, where they would like recut like old songs, not really old songs, but like popular songs like that to just random clips of anime. And I saw one that starred my boy Vampire Hunter D, and it was cut to it wasn't Rainbow in the Dark. It was one of the it was a Dio song. I forget which one it was.
Was it Holy Diver or was it?
No, it wasn't Holy Diver. It was Fever
Don't Talk
Dreams.
to Strangers, huh?
Fever Dreams, is that one? It must be fever dreams on the inside. That one? Is that what it's called, or is there a?
I'll find out. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Keep talking.
I think it's called Fever Dreams. Anyway, like I never heard Dio sing before ever. I never heard anything by Dio. My mom wasn't a fan, so I didn't. She didn't have any vinyl of him, which is weird when you think about it. 'Cause she liked a lot of hair metal, but no Dio. So that's the first time
Dio was not hair metal.
Really, I don't think so. I always like he's got that like high operatic like pitch, and like I always associate that with hair metal. And
No, Dio is not hair. No, that's like the most horrifically wrong thing you could ever say about Ronnie James Dio.
Cool.
Dio.
I'm glad I'm wrong out loud.
No. I don't mean it. I don't mean it in an insulting way to you or Dio. I just mean
fine.
What he was doing was like, number one, he was around before hair metal was even a thing, right?
Mm.
He sort of dipped his toe into some of that sound that was prevalent in the 80s, but like he was still, I
always kind of, and I don't know the history as well as you do, obviously. You truly are the master of metal. But I always kind of envision him in my dim understanding as kind of like Ozzy Osbourne, and that he's kind of a trendsetter and not really a guy that was a trend follower. I don't know if that's even a fair comparison. I know Ozzy was kind of like one of a kind, so.
No, I think it's a whole other discussion. We want to get back to the Bride with White Hair, but before we do, I just want to say, it's Fever Dreams is the name of the song, and
thank you. I knew that was a thing. But yeah, Fever Dreams, first song I ever heard from Dio, and it was exactly just a bunch of clips of this anime that I loved with that song going in. It was like perfect. So I have a lot of faith that you could cut anything of appropriate awesomeness into a really good AMV with Dio music going.
And so, but also, yeah, I think he was a trendsetter because he was responsible, for things like Rainbow, which carved a lot of interesting ground. He was responsible for helping to like light another fire under Black Sabbath, right? Like when they put out Heaven and Hell. It's amazing that the band was able to sort of, go on with another singer and to get another sound that late in their career. And then he had his own, success with his solo career, and he influenced so many people, right, with his vocal style. So I think
he's got a very unique vocal style that's really fun to listen to.
But we do have to make clear he was not hair metal. There's nothing hair metal about Ronnie James Dio.
I will take your word for it. I don't know what
I'm sure there are people who will make that argument because he was going like there was a certain sort of there was like a kind of metal in the late 80s that sort of had like a hard rock vibe and a heavy metal vibe. Do you know what I mean? He was kind of in that zone, but he was not getting anywhere near bands like Poison or any of that kind of stuff. Do you know
no, like Rat and guys like that.
That's hair metal. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what hair metal is.
So does hair metal kind of connote that more like poppy kind of metal?
It's just all style and no substance. Ronnie James Dio had style, but he had so much substance. You could not accuse him of being without substance.
Stuff. I wouldn't say that of like Rat.
Yeah,
Rat's fine. You can listen to Rat and like Rat.
I feel like James Dio used the minimal amount of hairspray you had to use to be in metal at the time, right? And Rat and Poison, they just used too much. Do you know what I'm saying?
They set the upward limit of how much could use.
Yeah.
Like I get that.
And he also wasn't doing the thing with mascara and like facial.
I thought that was more of a Kiss thing. Like that was more of their legacy with the whole.
No, but like all those hair and glam metal bands. Like if you look at like. I remember Poison had an album where they're just in full like not makeup like Kiss makeup, but like female makeup. Do you know what I mean? They have like lipstick on and eyeshadow and all that stuff, and it's kind of like what the hair metals band seemed to be doing was sort of like what Twisted Sister was doing, but serious. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, Twisted Sister was like, these are 4 ugly guys dressed up as women, and they're the ugliest women you've ever seen. And
I like Twisted Sister.
Well,
I don't know if like they're a popular band or anything. I know they were kind of famous for the whole "we're not going to take it" thing, but I really liked them. Like their whole attitude was fun.
Well, and also Dee Snider's like a really charismatic, just figure in the history of that kind of music. But I think that the glam bands, they're kind of doing that, but they're doing it more seriously, so that it's like it's really just kind of part of the look. Do you know what I mean? That's just sort of how
I get that. So I'm now walking away from this conversation with a greater and more nuanced understanding of metal. Thank you again, Metal Master.
I don't think it's. Trust me, there are people that know a lot. I should have known Fever Dreams off the bat though.
I only knew it was my introduction to Dio.
Well,
so.
And it's a later Dio song. It's not like it's like I'm not as big a fan of the later stuff with someone like Dio as the early stuff. I think that's from like 2000 or 2003 or something like that.
Oh, really?
I think so. Recent? I think it's pretty recent. I could be wrong, but I think so.
That's crazy recent.
So, but anyways, back to the Bride with White Hair too. So we probably want to. Are there any other characters we want to talk about before we move into other things?
No, I think we pretty much covered all the really important ones. Again, I want to give a little shout out to my boy Dynamite Man, whose kung fu consisted of putting dynamite in people's belts, lighting it, and running away until his heroic moment when he put it in his own belt to allow his friends to run away. That's it. He was a really fun character.
What would you do in terms of gameability with this?
Man, I gotta tell you, I'm in a design snag with Tian Shang where I'm really like rubbing my chin about guy with explosives, because like with kung fu games, I find that they actually eventually all follow a pretty simple formula of you have like a base character and then you have powers, which are special technique that does a thing, kind of similar to Vancy and Magic in D&D.
Yeah.
And like kind of wed to that, because that's how kung fu works. You learn your special name techniques, and you can fight, competently without them. But those are like your secret ingredient in what makes it cross the line from like monk in D&D to straight up where everybody is kung fu fighting.
Yeah.
And so those systems don't lend themselves very naturally to a stick of dynamite or a hand grenade or anything like that. So in the post-apocalyptic stuff of Lone Wolf Fist, and eventually in All Above Heaven 2, where we're going to have giant laser cannons and such, I don't want to say that I'm struggling with those things, but I'm struggling to find a place for them that I find satisfying, Because on the one hand, they should be reasonably effective because it's dynamite.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's sort of boring. Like, I know that technically, like, the Shoryuken Fire Punch is less destructive than a stick of dynamite, but it should be something that you want more as a player, and making certain that you have a place for both in your system is tough.
So here's my argument for weaponry in Wuxia. Number one, unique weaponry is a feature of the genre, right? And a feature of the kung fu genre. So I think you have to have it, and I think you have to treat weapons kind of the way you treat kung fu techniques, right? Like, because a lot of times in these movies, once people get hold of the ultimate weapon, that gives them tremendous power. So I think it's fair to have a stick of dynamite, to have, whatever, like she had a really cool arrow type thing she was using. The flying guillotine from the flying guillotine movies. I think it can work. What I think you have to do, though, is you have to make the weapon have... Like, the dynamite's tricky, but like look at the movie The Flying Guillotine, right? In Flying Guillotine, it's one of the most powerful weapons you can use. Once it lands on somebody's head, it's pretty much game over for them, right? You pull the head right off. But the sort of central problem of the Flying Guillotine is the amount of training you have to do just to master it. Do you know what I mean? It's really hard to wield effectively. So
you got to be like 3 feet, but you get a trip attack.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like you have to train. Like the whole movie is spent training a team to use these things, right? Like that's the whole, like that's how difficult it is to master. So when I put a flying guillotine in Ogre Gate, the way I did it was I had it be a requirement that you had to like you had to spend, time just getting to master this weapon. Do you know what I mean? Like that was the big hurdle. And even then it still is kind of gonna give you a little bit of a penalty. Do you know what I mean? So I think you could take a similar approach with Dynamite. If you want Dynamite to have the wow effect it has in this movie, you can have it be a little difficult to wield. Do you know what I'm saying? And then I think it would balance out, but it would also kind of match the reality of, this guy's fighting with dynamite. Like, that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, people don't actually do that, really. It's not, like, strategically advisable, because there's kind of two elements to fighting and making fighting like the thing you do. And the most basic one is not dying. Yeah. And then after that, it's killing the opponent. But, like, that killing the opponent thing is way less important than not dying in most cases. So, walking into battle that explosive is a bad idea. It really is violating the cardinal rule.
So I think if you gave it a chaotic element of some kind, that could work. If you gave it a risk of blowing yourself up, that could work. If you gave it a penalty just because it's just hard to like lob a stick of dynamite accurately.
Yeah. And when you do that, what you're really doing is you're putting it in the same exact balance scale as every weapon and technique and attack you can otherwise choose. And you're saying, okay, now dynamite is slow and ineffective, but when it does work, it's explosive and very destructive.
Yeah.
Therefore, you get to tactically weigh that against something faster and more reliable and safer, like the Shoryuken Fire Punch, and you can tell me which one your character wants to deal with. And I can put whichever one I want in a game, and the bad guys love different strategies depending on which one they choose. And I think that is a deep wisdom, Brendan, that I sip from. You were very wise tonight. We should do more of these at night when your wisdom manifests.
I think when you listen to this in the morning, you're going to regret that remark because you'll see that I've not been that wise. That it's just the effect of the late night. But I should mention, we're recording this at like midnight. So this is the vibe is probably very different, and we probably aren't even perceiving the vibe until after we've recorded.
This might be us being too groggy to recognize how stupid we sound.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a regret for the morning, Brendan.
So, but either way, I think there's that. I tend to hone in on setting details, and so I really like the idea of this cult and just how much of a menace it is, and I like the idea of an adventure where that's kind of what's going on, where the party and I know we talked about this before from a previous film, but in this one it would really work well, where some prior history between the party sect and this cult, is led to the present conflict, and the players are part of this new generation that have to contend with it. Do you know what I mean? And
this whole movie did lend itself to that kind of like first level character fighting a powerful end game boss vibe.
Yeah.
I like that setup a bit. I maybe wouldn't make it quite as hopeless because, man, the characters drop like flies in this movie. I've seen it run that way, though, and it can be a lot of fun. Like her D&D campaign has been pretty ruthless.
This was just a campaign where there was almost a total party kill. Do you know what I mean? That's just
almost, yeah.
It just did not go well for the player characters.
Oh, you know what else this movie did? It did something that I'm really proud that I designed in Tianshang, which is it made buying time an important and heroic act on the part of the lower level characters. Because it wasn't just like that the GM NPC showed up at just the right moment to save the plot. It was more like, we have stalled for time in blood for this whole movie. He's finally ready with the damn flower.
Yep. And that flower is a really great artifact that you can bring.
I like the flower.
I mean,
I think the flower got some play in our last discussion when we were doing the first Bride with White Hair.
Yeah,
but, it's still cool.
Yeah. No, that's true. It gets hard to keep track, so we probably don't want to linger on that detail if we covered it already.
It's so good that we inevitably had to talk about it. Yeah. We had to have. I don't remember because I'm old. It's late.
No, that's definitely probably likely. Were there any other things that leapt out at you in terms of game design or campaigns?
Oh well, they at one point they use mind altering magic on the
Yeah.
new bride and turn her evil, and that's one of those things that's actually kind of like it's been a point of contention in a lot of games, like mind control magic, because what was happening there was clearly that character is an NPC, and so using mind control magic on an NPC is generally okay because it leads to fun stuff like the fight that she had with her husband and such like. That's neat. It's whenever it's a player character that people like start clucking their tongues at it, where it's like because you don't really have a ton of control in a classically ran RPG. In a lot of new RPGs, like you're kind of a co-GM, but in old RPGs, like the stuff that you and I like a lot, you really don't have power over anything but what your character tries to do, like what they think, what they say, what they attempt. So removing even that shred of power just seems like you're holding the player's head under the water. Why are they at the table?
Well,
you know?
I guess my feeling on it would be if it's a legitimate failure on the player character's part, like she was captured by the bride with white hair and this is what happened. It's kind of like if you get attacked by a werewolf and you get lycanthropy. Do you know what I mean? It's like that kind of a thing where, yeah, she's out of control, and maybe there's like I don't know, like as a game mechanic, you might have some kind of check every day to see if she can break through the mind control.
They do that with Charm Person in some editions of D&D and its clones.
Yeah, there might be something like that going on.
But then it's just roll dice so you can play your character again, which isn't super satisfying to play. I like the imbalances a lot more. I think that my game has an advantage there. I mean, we inherited an advantage from Dr. Morin's design in that you can model that there is a struggle and that you're either taking just a penalty or you're role-playing it out depending on how you want the character to do it. That's neat because it preserves the somewhat more palatable mechanic of just having a negative on you somewhere, and it allows you the option of being the person to portray that kind of messed up psychology. That's fun. That's much better.
That can work. But I honestly have no issue with going the other way, where you play you play the character under mind control conditions. Do you know what I mean? Like that's I can manage.
I gotta tell you, I've had a lot of success with that, where I'm just like, your character is mind controlled and evil now, and then the player's just like, got it.
Yeah,
and they do. Like, I don't even have to like come in and be like, oh well, you wouldn't, nah, ever. Like, they just commit. So maybe I just got really good players, but
I mean, every group's different. I don't think it's. I feel like it's fair game, and I feel like that's. Again, if the GM just points at you and says you're mind controlled now, maybe that seems a little suspect.
But it's always going to be a die roll away with something like Charm Person. Oh, you failed your save. Well, you're evil now.
But this one's different. This one you have to get brought to the cult headquarters. They have to get you to drink the mind control substance and do that whole initiation thing. There's a whole series of things that have to happen for it to occur. And during that time, there might be room for players to do something about it. I just feel like it's just something where you need that kind of stake sometimes. It would suck to be this character, but that would also be a really thrilling adventure to have one of your player characters abducted by the cult, and then the rest of the party goes in and tries to rescue them. Like, imagine how much more meaningful that adventure is to them. Not that you should be doing this every week to people, just like.
Any adventure can get run into the ground if you do it too much. I think the trick with that is making certain that the players have options. Because, I think you can have, we're imprisoned scenes, or I'm being tortured scenes, or even, you're going to be mind-controlled scenes. You can have that. But I think that it's important not to put the players in a box that they can't escape from while you just narrate the awful stuff that happens to them. I think that's a trap you want to avoid. You want to give them enough that they can have a fighting chance, or that they have different options. There's different kind of approaches they could take. Could they talk their way past a guard? Maybe. Could they fight their way out with something they secreted on themselves? I mean, is there a secret exit or something?
Well, no, and I don't think you should just sit there and narrate bad things happening to them.
That's when I've seen it at its worst. That's what I see. I've been in a couple games where my character's tied up or something, and I'm just seriously just sitting at the table while the GM narrates stuff happening around me, and I'm like, do I need to be here, dude?
No, I mean, if the player's incapable of making any further choices, then the GM can just tell them, okay, your character gets tortured for 5 hours. I mean, you don't need to
Right. There's no point where I'm interacting as a player, so Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you need to narrate every grisly detail like that. And I don't think I mean generally I don't. Actually, it's funny. I was involved in a discussion on Endworld about this, about the importance of narration and narrative description. And I don't. I mean, I'll engage in it sometimes, but I don't think. I don't think GMs should really narrate the way that a writer narrates a book. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think.
I think that it's helpful as a GM to have a lot of tricks up your sleeve, and I think once in a while, whipping out something that's kind of poetic like that is fun because it makes something really kind of pop in the player's mind. But I think the important thing is getting your point across as succinctly as you can so they can get to kicking ass.
Yeah,
I think that's the important part.
and also I just would rather talk in my normal way when I'm doing a game. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to put on airs and assume an author voice. If that makes sense.
I get that. And I've seen GMs who do that, where they're like, "And then you behold the ancient stonework." Okay, I understand what you're doing there. Scale it back, bro. Like we're not there yet. You haven't earned this.
And I feel like that's the kind of GM that's more likely to do the things that you're talking about in those scenes, where it's just the GM is narrating these things. But
it comes from a good place. They have a very vivid image in their head, and they're trying to get it out. But we're not at the table for your vivid image. You know, that's where the whole trope
we're not there to listen to a story. We're there to play our character, right?
Yeah, and it's hard to make that connection, especially if you're a new GM. But you need to develop better habits than that.
But I think the key, though, is if a character is mind controlled, to let the player play the mind controlled character under the restrictions of whatever the mind controlled does. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got to tell you, some of the best roleplay I've done is whenever my character is mind controlled, because I get to do something different with the same character, and actually that's pretty fun.
Yeah,
I'm not so wed to the outcome of my character that I can't roleplay them through darker moments, even their own demise in that particular case. Characters die, man. You can't be like, "Oh, you killed my character."
No, and so I think that in that case, you're only going to lose control of the character if you don't play the mind control. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
So I think that's reasonable. But yeah, I don't know any other aspects of this movie that we would convert into game mechanics or RPG material of some kind.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of fun stuff in this movie, but I don't know how much of it is something I want to like directly convert into like an RPG. You know,
I think. I mean, I have this dream of this would make I think the Bride with White Hair and the source material, the book that it's based on, make the perfect RPG. I feel like you could replicate everything in these movies and in the book, and you would have a really great role playing game or a really great campaign. And
the trick would be, I think the trick would be making certain that the structure of the game allowed stories as good as this, like, to naturally emerge from the gameplay without forcing them. Because there's a lot of games that force them, even relatively clever games that are like, "Oh, this is going to be the thing that we do. This is going to be the outcome."
Well,
you don't want that. You want the game itself to kind of naturally evolve into the Bride with White Hair, you know?
There's a few ways to do this. Number one, you can just do it in the way of we're just playing in a world that is based on the Bride. Like, we're gaming inside that world. We're not necessarily gaming the storyline of Lian Ni-chung and Cho Yu-han, right? Like that's their story, and they may be figures in this world, but player characters entering this world are members of other sects and various things. Do you know what I mean? So it's just inhabiting the same universe. Another approach would be to bake that kind of melodrama into the system somehow. You could do it that way too.
Yeah.
You know,
I've seen a few systems that do that. What I consider to be relatively well. I've much maligned Burning Wheel before, but you know, Burning Wheel actually has some really fun and poppy social mechanics. If you're into like role playing it and then having mechanical, like really specific mechanical support for different kind of strategies you do.
Yeah,
Burning Wheel does that, and I think it does it relatively well. It's not my cup of tea. Again, I malign it a lot, but I gotta hand it to it. That was cool.
I know there's a powered by Apocalypse game called Hearts of Wulin that's being developed, and I believe
Yeah,
I don't know I don't know the mechanics, but there's something in the game called entanglements, which sounds, based on how it was described in a podcast I heard, it sounds like it would fit this like a Bride with White Hair type thing fairly well, because it's all about sort of giving the characters these connections to other characters, and sometimes there's conflict between an entanglement with your sect and an entanglement with your lover. Again, I probably don't understand the mechanics well enough to talk about them, so I don't.
I've played a good, healthy amount of Powered by the Apocalypse. I've played enough to know it's not my bag exactly. But I've got to admit, again, I've got to hand it to Powered by the Apocalypse. I admire some of their design. I really do, and I'm probably going to pick up a copy of this game. Well, it looks pretty foxy.
I'm not a Powered by Apocalypse person either, but this game in particular does appeal to me because my understanding is it's based more on
this game is candy for us. It's exactly up our alley. It's built to entice us.
Well, but what's interesting about Hearts of Wulin is it's based largely around the Chinese drama series. So it takes it like a lot of games, including my own, are based more on the movies or on the books or something. Do you know what I mean? And so, I definitely took inspiration from some of the drama series, but not in the way that this game does. This game really seems to be much of its focus, because those drama series, you get a lot more of the melodrama. Do you know what I mean? Like, you get melodrama in Wuxia movies, but those drama series, they're like 50 episodes. And so it's, long series like that naturally lend themselves to that kind of melodrama, and Chinese drama series are really good at pulling it off and kind of, pulling at your heartstrings and doing all these things over the course of a series. And so I am intrigued by the idea of a game that does that, and I think it would work really well for Bride with White Hair. I'd be very curious to see a Bride with White Hair scenario with that game.
But Powered by the Apocalypse is extremely flexible, so someone's going to do it. I hope they put it on YouTube, because I want to watch that too.
Well, the difficulty with Bride with White Hair would really be the IP issue, because it's not, as far as I know, it's not public domain. So, like I took extensive notes reading the book, and I did it with an eye toward making a gameable version of it, and I ended up not being able to use the notes for that purpose, because I realized I can't get the rights to Bride with White Hair. But I think it would be kind of cool to put something up for free or something online where you have like the Bride with White.
You put money, because Lone Wolf Fist is very much Fist of the North Star. Mm-hmm. No bones about it. I don't have any claim on that IP whatsoever. But the game is that in a lot of ways.
Oh, I get that. You can do this is the Bride with White Hair, but not really the Bride with White Hair. I understand you could do that, but But I feel like you should actually do the Bride with White Hair. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that is the...
How much that name is worth in our little niche of a niche industry.
It's not... I would just love to have... I just would love to have... I think it would be the best role-playing game ever. Do you know what I mean?
It's... I don't know, it's kind of amazing what you can do with that, because, Mike Pondsmith, of all people, got the rights to the Dragon Ball Z RPG for a long time. So, I wonder how many of these things you could just ask and be make the international phone call and be like, hey, can I option you to have residuals for Bride of White Hair RPG? Here's some business figures. You're not going to make much, but it's better than nothing.
That's a whole other episode, because I do know a little bit about some of that, but I think it's very difficult, and it's certainly above my level of capability. I would never be able to pull off that kind of thing. But I think it would be great if somebody could. And I don't know what the state is of the book. I don't know if the book is... I don't know if maybe that is public domain. I don't think it is. But if the book is, then I guess that would open up.
It's Chinese, right? So it's international copyright law, which is even more complicated than the already super complicated copyright law that we have here in the States.
But bottom line, I think a really glossy, nice Bride with White Hair RPG would be fabulous. It's probably never going to happen. But if anybody's listening and they're planning on doing it, I got extensive notes on the book, so I'd be happy to. Yeah.
He's the sage of at least 3 things.
No, I just got really nerdy when I was reading the book.
Kung Fu RPGs and the Bride with White Hair RPG, the theoretical Bride with White Hair RPG.
No, what it was... So part of it is I have a really bad memory now. And so when I read books with the intent of using them for later things, I take really extensive notes because I know my memory is not so great.
I've got money riding on that whole bare breast scene thing. I'm gonna win on that one.
Yeah, you might.
I'm betting against your memory. That's a sure bet, Davis.
Yeah. So no, that goes without saying. But I think that the thing with the Bride with White Hair book is I just got really nerdy about it, and I was like, I need to I was taking notes of every kung fu technique they mentioned, and I was making sure I knew what. Yeah, and every sect, every character. But in particular, the kung fu techniques is where I went crazy, and so. But what I was amazed by, I was like, wow, there's a shitload of kung fu techniques in this book, like a huge list of techniques. So it's which is one of the reasons why, and you see that most wuxia books have a lot of kung fu techniques, but just seeing it on the page, I was like, this really would make a great game. So again, I hope someday somebody does make one. And by the way, if you haven't read the book, you can get it free online in translation, and it's definitely worth checking out.
Is that what Jeremy did?
What?
Is that one of the ones that Jeremy did?
No, he didn't translate that one. He translated Heroes Shed No Tears, which is a really great read.
Ooh.
And he's translated a number of other things.
That movie made me shed tears. I remember that movie.
Yep. Which means you're not a hero, Joel. You're not a hero.
We didn't need anyone to tell us that. We knew.
Heroes are supposed to take their swords and shed the blood of their enemies for tears, and you got it all wrong. So
yeah, no, I took a sword and poked myself with it. And,
you cried.
Got backwards.
You cried like a wuss. It's just the.
I might have squirted like a wuss.
Okay, that's enough of that. But anyways, the book is Baifa Mono Zhuan, which I'm very much mispronouncing, and I know, so I apologize. But I think it's the white-haired demoness is what it translates into, or something to that effect.
Oh, that's cool, man. Why didn't we call it that?
Well, I don't. I mean, there are people that could, say what a better name for it. But I think the translation is either the biography of the white-haired succubus or romance of the white-haired maiden is another way that it gets translated. But yeah, so I think we've reached the end of this episode, and so we will head out for the night. It's after midnight, so we're starting to get groggy, and until then, we will talk to you later.